So Scott, welcome and thank you for participating in our forum for Mayor of New York City. We know you're a long time. You have a career. We want you to give us your background, give us your vision, give us your opening remarks, tell us everything you want us to know about your race, your candidacy, and then we have a few questions for you.
All right, well, I just want to say thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to talk about this campaign and the city. Let me start out by looking at some of the challenges this city faces. We have three crises at the same time. We have an economic crisis, we have a health crisis, we have a social justice crisis. And I'm running for mayor because I believe I have the vision and experience to meet these challenges, and I'm literally ready on day one to bring our city back. We have been through these crises before in our city's history. We had the fiscal crisis, we had 9/11, we had Hurricane Sandy. And I know that the Teamsters have always led the way to build our city back from these crises. And I'm going to honor your work and ensure that no worker has to fight back alone. It's going to take real government and political skills to get things done. And no one in this race has my experience. In every office, as assemblyman, as borough president, as controller, I have used every power I have to help unions and working people across this city. And I've partnered with you time and time again. We've worked together on NYCHA because we can't reopen the economy or rebuild the middle class without it. And for those of you who don't know, I grew up in Washington Heights back in the day. I grew up not far from Dyckman houses. And as controller, I have audited the management at NYCHA 15 times, more than all previous controllers. And what I've uncovered time and time again is mismanagement. The bureaucrats, if the bureaucrats were listening to the workers in this unit and this tenants, the whole system would be in a much better place. And that's what I've done as controller. I've actually called this union, called your union leader, and asked for advice on these issues. And that's what I'm going to do as mayor, because we've got to partner together to make sure that NYCHA stands strong. And the same thing is true with our school safety. I'm proud to stand with you as controller. When you sued the city in 2014, Greg, you sued to ensure pay equity for school safety agents because they do essential work. And I stood with you, and I stand with you today. You know, I'm the only mayor who takes their kid to school now, public school. And when I drop off my son, Max, I know he's in good hands because of the men and women who keep his school safe. You know, the school safety officer in our school is out there watching the kids get sanitized, watching to make sure that the temperatures are working, making sure that every kid goes in to the school with a hello and a good morning. And that's how I say goodbye. So I see what you do every single day. And I also want to mention to everybody that I've been working with Greg on all of these issues for a long time. We've discussed how to make the most supportive environments for our entire community, including kids, school safety agents, and our teachers. And that is what we have to do. But part of getting the work done is to make sure that we work with the union. And in the assembly, I worked with you. As borough president, I worked with you. As controller, I'm proud to tell you that your pensions are secure. Because of your trustees and because of Greg, we have delivered on the retirement security of every single man and woman in this union. Our work has delivered an average of 9% returns since I've been in office, and we have hit 14% just last year. We now have a $240 billion pension fund, and it's not there for private interests. It's for the members. And under my watch, everybody gets the check on time. I want you to know that I'm going to be the mayor you can trust during good times and bad. I will protect workers. I will deliver a fair budget for workers, and I'm going to bring back this city, starting with our small businesses. I'm going to reopen our economy and make our city more fair and just for everyone. You know, my mom passed away from COVID in April, and I remember when she passed away at a Bronx hospital. And we talked with the doctor that night, who said to me, look, the people who are dying of COVID are people in their 40s and 50s. They're black and brown. They're people who have not benefited from city government. They have been left on their own. And you got to stop that. You got to change that. And that is what I'm going to dedicate my administration. And that's what it's going to be about, making sure that we help the struggling New Yorkers who need real management and real experience, I'll reset the relationship in Albany. No one's going to steal my lunch money. As borough president, I know the value of community-based planning and listening to NYCHA residents. That is going to happen. And as controller, nobody has the financial experience, the understanding of the budgets and the agencies to redirect the resources we need. By the way, this is all about who has the best ability to do this on day one and who has the best housing plan and NYCHA plan. Because let's face it, Washington has ignored NYCHA, Democratic administrations and Republican administrations, and let's call it out. And I hope we can talk about my NYCHA plan today. Greg, thanks for giving me this opportunity, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Scott. Our first question will be coming from Derek Jackson. Unmute yourself.
Derek, you are unmuted and ready to go.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Stringer.
Hi, Derek.
Hi, Mr. Stringer. My name is Derek Jackson. I'm the director of the Law Enforcement Division for Local 237. I've met you several times, sir. You've already answered a lot of information on school safety, but I'd like to have you go more in detail. As you know, there is a nationwide reaction to incidents of police brutality that has been a call to defund the police. In New York City, that call has resulted in the City Council, Mayor de Blasio, and Public Advocate Williams pushing for legislation that not only transfers school agents from the NYPD to the DOE, but also removes them from public schools entirely. As we all know, there are more than 5,000 school safety agents. 90% of them are people of color. 70% of them are women. They are unarmed, but they still do an extremely amazing job, like responding to terrorist acts at Stuyvesant High School, where they came outside a few years ago and brought students back inside. Grand Street campus, where there were shootings outside in the street, but our agents do not have vests or firearms, but they put themselves in harm's way and go out and defend and take care of our children. They live in the communities where they work. These are very turbulent and violent times that we are in. The school shootings at Sandy Hook, Parkland, Columbine, all of those things could happen here. And really one of the reasons why they have not is because of the hard work of school safety agents. When the parents learned about the council's plan to remove school safety agents from the NYPD, the parents are outraged, and now more than 20,000 have signed a petition to protest against this removal. What do you see, sir, as the solution to protecting more than 1 million public school students, teachers, and other educational personnel, while also restoring the good name of school safety agents who have been demonized and demoralized by the city council, the mayor, and the public advocate? I'm also, sir, very sorry to hear about the loss of your mom from COVID. And I think it's also important to note that 15 active school safety agents have also passed from COVID while they're out there in the field. Mr. Stringer, please, your comments.
Well, I think I made it very clear that the role of school safety officers are very important to the school system. Look, I see the school safety officer every day outside, watching the streets and watching the children. Look, I think that there is a legitimate and important role. I don't think that changing the name on the door, moving school safety agents around from the DOE to the police department back and forth to satisfy, the politics of the moment, that's not the solution. We really want to make schools safe. Part of what we have to do is invest in guidance counselors and also invest in teaching assistants, making sure that our kids are getting the mental health initiatives they're going to need. We're not asking school safety officers to become the mental health counselor. We need to invest more resources in the schools. And that is how I would approach my plan for education. But I think I've made it very clear where I stand, and I'm going to continue to look at how we build a school system that is safe, that gives kids of all different backgrounds and all different zip codes the education that they need. Look, I'm a public school kid. I got kids in the public school. My mom was a former teacher. I know the system inside out because I've worked not just at a time when I wanted to become mayor, but I've worked with the school system for the last 30 years. I've seen the challenges. I've seen the great work of teachers and school safety officers, the people who make sure our kids are safe. Think about this. You drop off your kid to a school. We expect the school to educate the kid, feed your child, take care of any problem that the child has, and watch out for that child. That is the most important work that you do. And we should appreciate it and understand that it is hard work. Now, do I think the first thing we should do when there is a school incident is to call outside police officers with guns to come into schools? No, that doesn't work, because if you think about the data that we know, 63% of girls who are arrested are African American, 3% are white. So what we want to do is have a system that doesn't bring outside police, but rather resolve some issues within the school system. And when we do that, we protect our kids as well.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Our second presenter. Second question.
Scott. Good morning, Scott. I'm Sarah Wagner. I'm happy
Hi,
to
Sarah.
oblige your question about New York City Housing Authority, because I have one. I'm a lawyer at Local 237. New York City has some of the oldest public housing buildings in the nation. The dire need for capital repairs has led previous administrations to come up with plans that involve private developers. NYCHA residents are concerned about gentrification, and for Local 237 members, privatization could lead to job losses. First day with my new mouth. Could lead to job losses, relocation, and other labor agreement concerns. A new plan called the Blueprint for Change follows a public-private partnership based on a model used in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and is currently being advanced by NYCHA CEO Greg Russ. What is your opinion of this plan, and do you have any other plan for NYCHA?
First of all, I come from the view that public housing is public housing, and it's the best kind of housing. NYCHA was built by Mayor LaGuardia. First public housing was in 1938. If you got a public housing apartment back then, you were on your way to the middle class. And that has been the great tradition of NYCHA. That's how I grew up, near Dykeman houses, with kids from all over the neighborhood. Union jobs were part of NYCHA because union members lived in NYCHA. I know that firsthand. That's how I grew up in my neighborhood. But over the years, there has been tremendous divestment from the dream of NYCHA. The federal government has basically thrown up its hands and said, we're not going to invest in NYCHA. And as a result, we now need $40 billion in funding to bring NYCHA back from what I think could be an almost collapse of the system. I've done the audits, 15 of them. I know where the broken windows are, the dark staircases, the fact that the management of NYCHA can't run a 2-car funeral. We should own up to that. But look, we need to do a couple of things specifically, and this is what I'll do for mayor. First and foremost, I'm going to call Joe Biden the morning I'm elected, and I'm going to ask to come see him in Washington. And I'm going to say it's time to start getting HUD and the federal government back into the business of public housing. And we're going to ask for that $40 billion we're owed. And I'm going to lead a public-private agenda to go and campaign in Washington. You know, the great thing about getting elected mayor is you really can get anyone on the phone, and I'm going to do that. But I'm also not going to wait for the federal government to act. I'm going to commit $1.5 billion in capital funding from the city budget. I will go to Albany and get a $1.5 billion match. I will use stimulus money as well to create a financial package to do the work that NYCHA needs done, and to make sure that NYCHA is being managed not from some bureaucrat's agency, but we're going to move NYCHA into City Hall finally and give it the respect and the management. I'm going to work with Greg in this union to identify how we can help you do your jobs better. Instead of separating you from the decision making, we're going to empower you. And we're also going to make sure that we find new revenue streams for NYCHA. One of the proposals I've made as controller is moving excess battery Park City money, $40 million over 10 years to NYCHA repairs right now. The mayor, the governor, the controller can vote to do that. That would allow us to bond that money. So I believe that we need to come up with a state, city, Battery Park City financial package. We have got to go to Albany to get the repairs. But then what do? We're going to have to manage the hell out of NYCHA. We're going to have to make sure that there is a timeline for buildings to get the repairs and get the resources they need. Your workers, your union is ready to go. But for too often, we've seen audit after audit where the membership of this union is not listened to. And that's why I've built a very strong collaboration with Greg in this union, because I know that the answer to NYCHA is collaboration, discussion. But no one has more experience in this campaign as a candidate for mayor than I do about NYCHA. I know NYCHA throughout my entire 30 career, and also I've done the investigations, I've done the audits, I've looked at lead paint, I've looked at the boilers, I've looked at the lack of resources. I can go into City Hall on day one, call Greg, bring the leadership into City Hall, and literally start going building by building with a real management plan that will finally bring NYCHA back to the aspirational housing it is.
Okay. And we have a third presenter.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Greg. Good morning, Controller. My name is John Gallagher. I'm a Long Island business agent and a member of Local 237 for 35 years. Thank you for a very long public service career, and congratulations on your signature delivery Wednesday, because a great deal of volunteering goes into that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My question is, what is your vision for New York City going forward in pandemic recovery?
I think we have to address the three crises I've outlined. First and foremost, we can't bring the economy back the same way we closed it. For so many working families who are frontline workers, union households, this pandemic showed the real inequity in our city. The lack of investment in communities of color, the lack of investment in terms of fixing the health disparities in our city. I'm going to upend the status quo when I'm mayor. We're going to direct budgets and resources to communities that have been hardest by COVID. Look, think about this. When the unemployment rate went from 3.4%, 20% in the first 30 days of COVID, it wasn't Wall Street that was hemorrhaging. It was the backbone of the city, the people in the city. Wall Street made $38 billion in profit during the pandemic. But the people who got sick, the people who passed away, were the frontline workers, the people who got on the train every morning and did the work of the people, the city workers. And when it came time to balance the budget during a pandemic, the mayor of this city stepped up and told us what his priorities were. End summer jobs for our young people and threatened to lay off 34,000 city workers. The city controller stepped up with data and said, no, you do not fight a pandemic by going after the most vulnerable. And we have to open this economy to protect the most vulnerable. And when you look at what I've put forward in terms of a jobs plan, in terms of a recovery plan, it is full on about equity. It's about leveling the playing field. It's about making sure that New York comes back differently. And let's talk about those health disparities, because the truth of the matter is the communities that got devastated by COVID was because of the land use and zoning decisions made by government over the last 30, 40 years. Where do you think all the dirty bus depot stations were placed? They were placed in communities of color. Where was the peaker plants sited? In communities of color. What did that do? It created unhealthy neighborhoods. Did government care about that? No, because we were managing people's illnesses. And you know what? We were getting away with it, this government, for a very long time. And then COVID came, sir, and said, no, this virus goes after the most vulnerable. We saw it in the Bronx. We saw it in Staten Island. We saw it in Brooklyn and Queens. And we need a mayor who understands how we're going to redirect services for our children, for our seniors, how we're going to look at budgets and the wasted bureaucracy. Let's take the Department of Education for a second. How we're going to move that money into mental health services for our children, how we're going to move money into classrooms at schools, how we're going to fix ventilation systems so that your workers are safe as well as teachers and our kids. This has got to be a whole new way of thinking about reimagining a healthy city and an economy where only some have done well and most have suffered.
Scott, can you tell us, as of your last filing, your last financial filing, how much you have on hand in your campaign account?
Yes, so getting into the nitty-gritty of the campaign. So I've raised, as of a few weeks ago, $9.1 million. I got $8 million in the bank, and I got it ready for the last 3 months of the campaign. I anticipate Greg being able to raise $10.5 million, which will give us one of the highest amounts of money going into the last few weeks of the campaign. I've built a very strong coalition of elected officials, the most diverse coalition of labor and our elected officials from all over the community. In fact, our endorsements now overlay 57% of the city. We're going to have enough money to communicate my vision for the city. And what I think people want and want to hear from me about is who's the mayor who can be ready on day one. This is not a mayoralty for training wheels. This is not a mayoralty for someone to have it as a consolation prize, or for someone who's been away for a decade to suddenly come back and say, this is a nice job. This is serious business. You have to have the pre-existing relationships. You have to have the ability to build a good team around you. One of the things I'm most proud of, Greg, in addition to raising this money, is the team that has worked with you. It's the best team in city government, and it's the most diverse team. So I have to showcase these issues, talk about our record on MWBEs and how we took on this administration. I think people do not want a third term of de Blasio, and they don't want another status quo mayor. I think they want experience, but I think they want someone they believe that can protect union jobs, create 100,000 new jobs, but also build the real affordable housing that we need for our people, and who can actually educate our kids with mental health services they're going to need, and stop playing the political games and actually get to work and get things done.
Can you briefly tell us what unions are supporting you as of today, and give me two high profile endorsements?
All right, let's see. So RWDSU with me. CWA.
Is that
Stuart Applebaum? Yes. Okay. RWDSU with me. CWA, the entire CWA is with me. The New York State laborers have endorsed me. The New York City building trades have endorsed me. Local 3, I believe, reaffirmed that this week. That's going to add to the group. And in terms of high-profile endorsements, we have Congressman Adriano Espaillat. The Dominican Latino vote is going to be important. Many people know that I have an extended Puerto Rican family, but we've also got tremendous endorsements in the Latino community, from Espaillat, from Amanda Septimo, from Julia Salazar. It runs the gamut between the next generation young elected officials to the ones who have been there. Obviously, Congressman Jerry Nadler has been with me as well, and we continue to build those endorsements. Greg, they're very diverse. They're from all 5 boroughs, and we continue to roll out these endorsements, in the interim.
Thank you. And
but by the way, the way you win this election is by getting this endorsement. Teamsters win elections. So I'm not going to sit until if I can bring this home. I know the power of this union.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind remarks, and thank you for participating. Can you give us closing remarks?
Well, first of all, let me say this. I have enjoyed our relationship together. We have been partners, both in terms of protecting the retirement security of the union members. We have also worked to hold management accountable to the issues impacting NYCHA tenants and also the workers at NYCHA. And I think there's something lost in translation when it came to this administration and the truth and understanding of the work that all of you do to keep NYCHA residents safe and keep our kids safe. This mayoralty, if I win, will be a mayoralty of partnership with you. I have demonstrated a 30-year record of being part of the union labor movement, protecting working people, fighting to make sure that this city is for everybody. And I would be honored to have your support, as I have in the past, because when we build a labor progressive coalition, when we make sure that we can fight for the middle class and those aspiring to get there, this is a winning formula to govern as mayor. And I have every intention of winning this race. As I mentioned, we have the resources, we have the broadest base of support, and obviously this union is critical to anyone who thinks they can be elected mayor.
Thank you. And thank you for participating.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.